So we're here in Edison with Republican mayoral candidate Keith Hahn. And could you tell us where we are, sir, and why we're here?
Yeah, we're at the Stelton Rec Center on Plainfield Avenue in Edison, New Jersey. This rec center, used to be a rec center. Now it's since 2018, they locked the door and it's basically been an abandoned building ever since. There's no recreation center for the kids in South Edison to utilize.
And so your understanding is they don't have any immediate plans to restore this rec center?
No, it's been falling into disrepair for years, Max. In 2018, it got to the point where it needed repair. In 2017, prior to the last election, they started holding town hall meetings and forums where they were going to build a new rec center. You know, obviously after the election that fell apart, and this place, they locked the door in 2018. They have no plans for it since.
As mayor, what would you want to do with this building?
So the original plans the mayor was talking about is they want to build like a $65 million rec center at the Ford plant. Personally, I don't agree with that. If you're going to build a $65 million rec center at the Ford plant, for the kids who live in North Edison and don't have transportation or ride, you might as well build that rec center in Monroe. My plan is you put 3 or 4 rec centers like this in the middle of a neighborhood that's walkable, where kids can ride their bikes in, so they could utilize it without transportation or requiring a ride from their parents. That's what makes sense.
The plan, the town is a sprawling town. It's one of our sprawl zones in New Jersey. And your point is that this creates a livable, walkable neighborhood feel to have these. This is, I would imagine, part of the original design of the town. So
Sure.
Rather than keep creating this Megillah of development, you're trying to restore some sense of place to the town. Is that a...
Well, yeah. In years past, Edison had a sense of community, and each neighborhood had their own sense of community. But to put one in a certain neighborhood with nowadays, a kid, if he doesn't have a parent that could drive him, how's he going to get there? If he can't get there, he can't utilize it. So you need to put places that the kids could use, especially nowadays with COVID. These kids, they're isolated, they're not in school, they're not socializing with their friends. Some of them are in crisis, they have nobody to outlet to. You need places like this for kids to go, socialize, have something. Like I said I think I said in our last interview, if you don't give kids places to go and constructive things to do, they're going to find things to do themselves, and it might not be that productive.
You grew up coming to this rec center, is that correct?
Yeah, I came here in the 80s. We played basketball, we played pool, we played ping pong. Sometimes you would just come here, and it was, we didn't have cell phones back then. This was the place to meet your friends and see where you were going to go or what you were going to do.
And did you also patrol this area?
I have, since 1995 when I became a police officer. And the building was utilized back then. It was just over the years it's deteriorated. And like I said, since 2018, that's 4 years ago. This place is just sitting vacant, deteriorating by the day.
You've had a chance to look at the plans put together by one of your opponents or one of the candidates in the Democratic primary.
Sure.
Councilman Sam Joshi. What do you think about those plans for the waterfront development when you look at a situation like this where there's a physical plant that's not being used?
Well, I think when you have a plan, a 7-year plan, it's going to cost $1 billion to put a marina on the waterfront. You know, that's great and it sounds good for a Democratic primary. But when you can't figure out, and you look at this building, when you can't figure out how to repair this building and put it back into use for the kids of this town, how are you going to accomplish a $1 billion marina on the Raritan River waterfront? I just don't see it as a feasible plan.
He could argue that his relationship with the governor's office, with the Middlesex County Democratic Committee, with these other powerful entities who have all come and rushed to his aid,
yeah.
or rushed to his side,
yeah.
That he has that kind of leverage.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Even though I switched parties, I think I could argue that my relationships, whether it's the governor, the Speaker of the Assembly, Craig Coughlin, Kevin McCabe, my relationships are good with people on both sides of the aisle. When I switched parties, I didn't burn bridges. I think people, hey, when Phil Murphy moved to New Jersey, he didn't move to Edison. When Kevin McCabe recently moved, he didn't move to Edison, he moved to Metuchen. And there's a reason for that, because Edison has had dysfunctional government for quite some time.
So Edison stands, as the rest of the towns in New Jersey do, at the precipice of getting federal aid for infrastructure.
Sure.
And what would you do with the money that Edison is owed, and why do you think the Democrats are not providing perhaps the best delivery system to create infrastructure projects in
Well,
Edison?
I saw you ask one of the other guys the same question, and I think their answer was part of the money was going to be used for tax appeals. That's something they should have been planning for ahead of time. They knew the economy. So if they're planning on using that money for tax appeals, why would we trust they're going to do the right thing with it for anything else?
What would you do with it?
Well, first, buildings like this, we got to get back in place. The Suez deal we talked about. We need significant infrastructure repair to our sewer and water. Our roads are crumbling. Our curbs are gone in some neighborhoods. There's serious issues we need to do with that.
You've been out on the campaign trail. What have you been hearing from the people of Edison in terms of what they want their mayor to prioritize?
So, almost everybody, it's an issue with the overcrowding in the schools. It's an issue with our recreation facilities for not only our kids but our seniors. And that's something that has to be addressed in the next administration.
What are you seeing on the Democratic side in terms of the collision that you've described as perhaps getting to the point where there's no return for that party? Do you see it worsening over there? Do you see one candidate dominating the other? What is you're a former Democrat.
Yeah.
What is your sense of how that's going?
I think the damage that's being caused on the other side is going to be unrepairable after the primary, no matter who wins.
Thank you, sir.